Hi everyone, my name is Amber Moore, and this is a case study for Counseling 847 in regards to parents who are incarcerated. So the first thing that we're looking at is the problem. Mr. Sharp, who is currently incarcerated, asks for a copy of his son's educational records. However, his ex-wife, Ms. Sharp, does not want her ex-husband to have access to their son's records and tells the school not to send them. So the registrar has come to you because they're not sure how to proceed at this point, and so they're kind of looking for some advice and guidance. Some background here. In order for the school to make an ethical and legal decision regarding the rights of the father, they actually have to have legal documentation that supports or refutes Ms. Sharp's request to not have those records sent. So a couple of challenges that we look at in regards to this particular situation is maintaining relationships, first of all. In this particular case, it's important to maintain positive relationships with both of the child's parents. Legal documentation. The school must obtain legal documentation from both parties indicating Mr. Sharp's rights towards his child at this point. And really, we need to consider the possibility of harm to the child. Having an incarcerated parent is already really tough on a kiddo. So the school will need to keep an eye on the child and provide additional supports as needed. So these are kind of three different challenges that we're facing right now. But at the end of the day, it boils down to this. What does the law say? Well, according to FERPA, an educational agency or institution shall give full rights under the Act to either parent, unless the agency or institution has been provided with evidence that there is a court order, state statute, or legally binding document related to such matters as divorce, separation, custody, that specifically revokes these rights. So it's very, very clear that parents, regardless of the situation, uh, continue to have educational rights towards their child as long as those rights have not been revoked by the courts. So, what does the ASCA standards for school counselors say? Well, basically, it just kind of has you reference back to FERPA. Abide by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which defines who has access to students' educational records and allows parents the right to review and challenge perceived inaccuracies in their child's records. So, what it boils down to is at this point, Mr. Sharp, as long as the courts have not revoked his educational rights, has the right to request his child's records, and it is the school's legal obligation to give him those records, regardless of what Ms. Sharp says. So for this particular case study, I just decided to take a little bit of a different route, simply because in regards to release of records, the law is very, very clear. So I wanted to take a look at what are the effects on children who have parents that are incarcerated, because as of a 2020 study, about 45% of individuals have at least one immediate family member incarcerated or who have been incarcerated. And that's a really, really high percentage. So this is something as counselors and teachers we face all the time. So some things about incarceration and specifically students and how it affects them. It says that some studies suggest that parental incarceration has an independent effect on a child's behavior, academic performance, and mental health. And so when we look at that, there are other factors that tend to come into play when we're looking at children who have parents who are incarcerated, but it can also have an independent effect. Children were most likely at risk before the parent was incarcerated. So this just compounds the fact that they were already at risk. The relationship between parental incarceration and child well-being may depend on the societal context in which the parent or parental incarceration occurs. And what that means is, you know, there is a higher percentage of parents who are incarcerated that come from poverty. And so depending on how that comes about, that has a different effect on kids. It's said that approximately one half of state prisoners, 64% of mothers and 47% of fathers, lived with at least one of their children either in the month before or just prior to imprisonment. That is an extremely high percentage of our kids who have parents that are currently incarcerated. And then parental incarceration is strongly related to the economic strain in children's households, defined as low income with an unemployed caregiver and a lower standard of living or inability to meet the child's needs. So not only are our children dealing with the fact that they have a parent who are incarcerated, but they're also dealing with some environmental strains as well. So it's just one thing kind of compounded upon another. So it's a really big concern in our school systems right now. So there's a couple of different approaches that I looked at that I thought, really made sense in regards to working with children who are struggling with parents who are incarcerated. And the first one was a general strain theory. And basically what that means is there's kids, when they have a parent who is incarcerated, there is an excessive amount of strain on them. So according to the general strain theory, a lack of goal attainment, negative experience, and loss can lead to strain. And so all of the things that may have compounded before the parent's incarceration just kind of get worse after they're incarcerated. That incarceration can lead to a strain on a child, and that strain increases the child. As the strain increases, the child may feel more disconnected from school. And really what happens is they tend to focus more on the problems going on at home than at school. So these kids might seem very distracted, kind of give up a little bit easier. But the reality is there's that underlying issue. The other theory was the attachment theory. When parents provide inconsistent support, children maintain less secure attachments. So if this child previously came from poverty, parents suffered from drug abuse, alcohol abuse, they may not have those attachments, those secure attachments already, and then that's only going to get worse once a parent is incarcerated. So that attachment becomes disrupted when a parent becomes incarcerated. And some of the things that a child may experience are insecurity, disorganization, isolation, tension, and anger. So these are a couple of different theories that we can look at when supporting our children who have parents who are incarcerated. So the question then remains is what can we do as counselors and as teachers and as supports to our kids who have parents who are incarcerated? And I think the first one is really to continue to provide parents with resources. There are a lot of state and federal funding programs out there. The SNAP program provides food assistance, Medicaid provides medical assistance. WIC is designed for moms who have children under the age of 5, and all of these provide additional assistance, financial assistance for the parent and the families, which is incredible because that is one less thing that our students would have to worry about in their day-to-day life. I think it's important to remember that this child may need additional supports and counseling services. And, this might look like a tutoring program or, those types of different things. And really, at the end of the day, school is a safe place for a lot of our kids, and we need to allow them to find ways to express themselves. A lot of times they are angry and they are sad, and they may lash out in the classroom or at school because that is where they are safe. And while that's not an appropriate behavior, we still need to find ways to help them express that anger and sadness. One of the other things I came across was starting a support group for students, and actually one of the videos that I shared with the group is a support group that was designed for kids who have parents who are incarcerated, and it's really, really powerful. And mentoring programs. At this point in their lives, these children do not have a lot of, parental support or parental guidance and positive parental guidance. And I know a lot of school districts do a mentoring program, teammates, big brothers, big sisters, and even this child could be, the mentor themselves. Finding the purpose for them is really helpful. But I wanted to share this amazing Sesame Street video that I found while doing some research on this topic. And the fact that, a worldwide program is addressing this issue is pretty incredible at this point, because this is a big deal. So let me start this. So I just wanted to share that video with the class, and you can finish watching it later. But it's a really, really powerful video that talks about um, incarceration. And I think it would be really helpful for our early elementary kiddos when they're trying to deal with and understand why a parent's incarcerated, and be able to validate their emotions. The other video that I shared with the class, I don't have time to show it to you guys, but it is a high school group of students whose parents, one or more parents, have been or are currently incarcerated for various reasons. And it's a pretty powerful mentoring support group. So I encourage you to watch that video if you're looking for some ideas on how to better support some of our students, because as I stated earlier, the reality of the situation is that almost half of our students have parents who are or who have been incarcerated. And so it's incredibly important to have supports in place for those kids in order for them to, hopefully break that cycle. And here's a list of my references. If you guys have any questions or want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. Thanks.